Hey, Enda, thank you for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to this. We're going to be talking about some really great things. I'll now give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, and then you can kind of talk about what you do, and that will lead us nicely into the conversation.
Okay, good stuff. Delighted to be here. Thanks a million for the opportunity, Gary. And so, what I do, I guess I've been trying to crystallize it over the last while, and it's jumped from one thing to another. But what I'm what I'm focusing on now is helping entrepreneurs achieve a life of deep personal fulfillment. Um,
Fantastic.
yeah. That's as kind of clear as I can get it for the moment. It's much bigger than that, but that's all I'll say for the second.
Yeah, brilliant. Because we've had this conversation, haven't we? We've talked about like there's the different things and that like the evolution that you've made in your own business, and I suppose that comes from
Mm.
maybe as you've kind of got a little bit clearer on your own fulfillment and what fulfills you and what you enjoy doing. Is maybe that's what's come from your kind of messaging now for your business.
Yeah, and also I was grossly underselling the value of the deeper transformation. Oops. And then getting washed away in the sea of, peak performance coaches who are all about checklists and crazy morning routines and all this kind of stuff, which is the polar opposite of what I do with clients and who I am as a person. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
it got a bit confusing there for a while. And like I was saying when we are talking about this, peak performance is an important aspect of my overall overarching offer, but it comes as a byproduct rather than it being the actual focus. So, my last offer called the performance switch really kind of lended itself to people just thinking that, if you know what I mean. So I've changed it to an offer called Be More, and I'm playing on the Irish word more, which is mo fada, or which means great or big. So it's just bigger. There's more to it than that. But the bottom line is fulfillment, and there's so many entrepreneurs that have made it, financially, and they've got all the trappings and stuff like that. And, to excuse my French in advance, they're fucking miserable. So it's just the external isn't matching the internal.
mm.
And just through working with a lot of people over the last few years, I keep seeing that more and more and more. And if I can help people in a very meaningful way, it's to basically enhance the happiness that they're experiencing every day in their lives and business as well. You know what I mean? So, and it's still an evolution. Next year it'll probably be something else on top of it. But for the moment, I'm kind of trying to crystallize it into a program where I'm taking unfulfilled people through this process, and at the end of it, they're like, "Wow." Because when you're changing so much, in terms of personal transformation, it just ripples out all over your life. You know what I mean? So I've seen people improve business, like say a 30% bump week on week, and they hadn't changed any kind of organic style or any new posts had gone out or anything like that, but people were DMing them, and they were like, "What's going on here?" you know
Yeah.
and
Uh,
I think that's more to do with energy blockages or people unconsciously refusing abundance from the universe, if you like.
yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? I've noticed this when if you if you focus on like the external, the things that you want to change that's happening around you,
Mm,
when you change that thing, that will change. Great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything else is going to change. But when you focus on the internal stuff, everything can change, and then all of a sudden you see that big transformation. So I suppose that's the possibly the one big difference in what you do is that you help change a lot of different things when you help them with the fulfillment side, but actually you don't necessarily focus on each individual thing, but it just naturally changes as a byproduct of the work that you do with your clients.
exactly. That's why we like it's a simpler way of working in a way, because it's not so much like kind of busy doing stuff, but it's actually the depth that we go to make the changes. It's at a core identity level. So people are
Mm,
seeing and visualizing and becoming the ideal version of themselves. And when they're the ideal version of themselves and they can see it and visualize it in all of the different sensorial ways that we do this in the deep immersions, like, I mean, the subconscious is starting to see and shape your reality as a result of all this, you know, much beyond our quote unquote mindset, change your mindset kind of stuff. This is just so much deeper, and it will change your mindset as a result, but it's not mindset coaching, peak performance coaching, all of these other things that they're more, and they're all great as well. This is just different. It's just working at a much deeper core identity level.
Okay, so let's say we've got someone who's listening to this and they know there's something not quite right, but they don't know if it's a fulfillment thing. What are some of the things that you would say to be aware of that would say that the type of help that you provide would be exactly what they need?
Okay. I guess when we're talking depth of transformation, there are a few things. I just want to turn off notifications. There are a few things to be aware of that I see. Just say if we look at hypnosis, right, and you look at what's on Mind Valley and who the big ballers are in the hypnosis realm, and you'll see a huge amount of people talking about regression to childhood. You know, and okay, granted, for the first 7 years, we are downloading everything. You know, we're in a state of hypnosis and we're downloading all the information, all of the habits. We don't have to be taught anything. We can just see and we know, you know what I mean? Through the eyes and all the senses. But that doesn't mean that everything we're carrying stems from those first formative 7 years, you know? So when I see people talking about regression to child or regression to cause, but they're only talking about this realm and they're not, you know, taking into account ancestral trauma, you know, signals from the past to warn future generations of this thing that, you know, caused, you know, really negative things to happen without even getting into stuff. But I guess to clarify, you know, you see a couple of examples. The Dutch hunger winter, which was around World War II, that generations later, so we're a couple of generations, you know, forward from there. And so grandkids are becoming obese and they're experiencing diabetes and other things, you know, poor health associated with overeating. Why are they overeating? Because of lack programming that came in from their grandparents experiencing this hunger.
So it could be very much a generational thing or even a family-wide thing. So if like there's almost like a family issue of lack of fulfillment and different, I don't know, like you say, like health issues or whatever it might be, that might mean that there is some sort of unfulfillment in their side, that they've not necessarily found their place in the world or their place, I don't know, in business, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, to bring it into business sense, you know, like if someone's in business and they have this kind of safety, you know, don't stand out from the crowd, don't be a tall poppy, because generations ago, you know, so there's generations ago something happened to put fear into that person, and that was coded into the DNA and sent forward as a warning. So risk aversion could be a major thing there, especially in entrepreneurship. And you're you know, you have all the information you need, the market is there, you have an amazing offer, but you're not sticking your neck out, you know, to actually take advantage of all the business that's there. Why is that? You know, maybe it's down to who knows what the story could be. You know, we're like they've tested scientists have tested nematodes, which are like a type of worm. Now, whatever they've done to traumatize a nematode, they've been able to, because they reproduce so quickly, they've been able to go, okay, 13 generations. That happened. I'm not sure how long it takes for 13 generations to be created. But the 13th generation was still carrying the code that the traumatized one 13 generations back had changed. So if we look back 13 generations as humans, is that beyond 1,000 years? And what kind of lifestyles were we living back then? You know what I mean? Putting out like positive messages on the gram or whatever, or were we just really, struggling in some cases, very badly struggling, or whatever the case may be. But you can just imagine what could be happening all the way back then, all the way into the future. And then, trying to find a solution for those problems and those things not sitting well in your reality. And then somebody regressing you to childhood cause, because that's exactly where it should have come from, right? But then they're missing this whole bigger picture, and that's before we even get into the karmic side of things, before we get into the energetic side of things as well, that, we're carrying all of this information in our field. I don't get too in depth into all this as well, because I communicate directly with the subconscious mind and I ask it. I don't prescribe where I think it's coming from. I just give it the option. You know what I mean? It could be from childhood, it could be this lifetime, it could be any lifetime, it could be any, dimension, reality, universe, parallel, past, present, concurrent, wherever it is. And it will just go, yeah, it doesn't have a point of view of where any and all of this could be coming from, because it has all the information at its disposal. So it can then make the choices to find whatever it is and to dissipate and release it.
Okay. So when you're like with either a client or somebody who's interested in your services, potential client, do you then try to just kind of speak to that subconscious side of them more than the conscious side that's with you? So it's like you try and dive into that to try and work out where the challenges might be and the things that are holding them back.
Yeah, because consciously we're going to have our points of view and we're going to view things through a lens, right? So just say PTSD, for example. There's usually one aspect of PTSD that is blamed for the meltdown, the trauma, and basically, how the brain is damaged from it. But usually it's something that's much further back that has acted as an anchor. And then over time, a lot of things got added and added and added. It's like rice paper over time, just stacked up, and then boom, this event happened. Okay. And the way that the way that event was internalized created the trauma, okay, on top of the actual event itself. Okay. So consciously someone is going to have an opinion that was the thing, and they will forget about all of the other stuff in the past, and they may not even remember it. Something may have happened in childhood that they just don't remember, but that acted as an anchor, like I said, or like I alluded to earlier on, it could have been inherited. Do you know?
So I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, it must be a really massive challenge for you to try and work out what it is that's holding people back, because there could be so many different things, and it could be that they don't even know consciously what it is. So it must be your job. It just sounds very difficult. So how do you do it?
I don't do it.
Okay.
I engage with their subconscious mind, and their subconscious mind does it. See the thing? See the difference there between someone going, this definitely sounds like it happened in childhood, or two, I'm now talking to your subconscious mind. I want you to scan through the entire mind and body, deleting and removing anything and everything to do with number one problem that you've brought in here. I actually did a session with a client yesterday. He was sitting in Miami in his car because he couldn't find a conference room in the office, and he said, look, I just want to go out, right? And he has Polish lineage, and while we were running the session, I just got inspired to ask the subconscious mind to look for any ancestral stuff in the DNA, in the energy field, in the encoding, and that particular step took a long time. So I'm just asking the subconscious to go through any and all. And actually, the reason I remember that was that sometimes I would run it for anxiety, sometimes I would run it for addictions, sometimes PTSD, trauma, all of these symptoms, right, that someone has presented with. But yesterday, I ran it on the number one problem that your subconscious knows about that you don't even know consciously what it is, and it just went through the big session. Normally, the way we run it, we get a head nod from the subconscious. It's like an ideomotor response. Sometimes you'd see a finger lift and stuff like that. But for the purposes of somebody sitting in their car, a head nod is easier. And I just noticed that the processing after each step and stage was taking longer. And he described it afterwards as well. It just felt like something big was happening, and that he was being shielded from any remembrance of that. So the subconscious is there to keep you safe, right? So in some of the more visual aspects and some of the more visual processes that we do, the subconscious will present safe analogies. So you're kind of getting a sense of what's going on visually, and that visual is a mediation between your subconscious mind and your conscious mind. So you're kind of getting a sense of what's going on, but it's keeping you safe in the process. It's not showing you like these old traumatic events and stuff like that, because that would re-traumatize you, right?
Yeah.
And then with the I'm now talking to your subconscious mind, I want you to scan through the entire mind and body, delete and remove anything and everything to do with whatever that is. You're not getting a visual sense of that, but he got a sense that he just kind of went, whoa, and was protected from the processing. And then when we came back in, he just felt really, really light, during one little process of many. So if you think about the book Psycho-Cybernetics, it's like we're like a big mainframe, and I'm just basically plugging an Ethernet cable into that, and I'm there at my laptop, and it's just going through all the programming. And it doesn't mean that I have to zero in on what it is, or I have to come up with my conclusions that are going to be created through my way of looking at things, through my lens. You know what I mean? So I'm going to stick someone with a bunch of my opinions, which isn't a good way of working. So does that give you a good answer? I don't want to just keep talking and parroting and going through it.
No, actually, it really helps a lot. It gives me a much better understanding of what you do and how you help your clients. And I think it's brilliant because, like you said, it's talking to that subconscious side that it's the thing that we're not always aware of. And like you said, we can bring our own biases and things into it. So like you can bring your biases into what they're saying and thinking. So it's, if you do it on a subconscious level, no one is being influenced in any way by it. It just kind of naturally happens, I suppose, like you said. So do your clients, when they go through this process, is it an instant thing that they feel, or is it sometimes it's a little bit of a delay and then they feel it maybe a few days or even a few weeks later when you go through this process?
Yeah, I mean, we're all different, and we all experience it differently, and we're all bringing different things to it as well. So some clients, I remember doing, I did kind of like 10 intensives. So it was kind of like a little bit of chat and then like a 30-minute, kind of demo, but there are no demos with this. We can make a subconscious shift like in a minute or 2 minutes. So, what I did was 30 minutes with people, and I was following up to see how they were, and guys still processing. So I could just imagine like the Mac beach ball still going, and this was after 2 weeks. So whatever was shifted, just started doing its, processing and integrating. And the integration took, at least 2 weeks, if not more. And then some people will just go, whoa, I just felt a massive energetic shift. So that's one thing I didn't mention, but I run these sessions as energy sessions as well. So wherever the subconscious isn't going, There is a big energetic component and a huge energy shift as well. Don't ask me how it works. It's just something that I tapped into, and it's something that I only realized that I had a capacity with while I was doing a group session with 300 people on Insight Timer, where you're not allowed to use hypnotic phenomenon. But for me, the line between, hypnosis and meditation is quite blurry anyway. But the difference for me was that I used an energy exercise instead of a hypnotic induction and deepener to get people into a nice relaxed state. But, from the comments and questions and feedback and people saying, when you said this, then I got this huge shift. What was that? You know what I mean? That was like, shit, I need to look into this. So but I brought all that back into the deep subconscious processes that I was already running with people, and added back in the hypnotic, inductions and deepeners and all that kind of stuff, but still run the sessions as energy sessions, even though, we're doing all the word magic and all that kind of stuff as well, and talking directly to the subconscious. I think talking directly to the subconscious is the key factor as well, because it can access all systems, energy systems as well, ancestral stuff, the DNA, whatever's encoded in there that's no longer valuable or no longer serves you right now in this present moment. Maybe it had some value before. Maybe it kept you safe as you were growing up, or it shielded you from certain things, but now, you're an adult. On my website, I try to simplify it for people, and I use the example of a young child, like 3-4 years of age, in that kind of downloading phase, and they're kind of, they're scooting around a coffee table which has a magazine on it. On that magazine is a picture of a plane. And that's all good, no problem. And they're not even taking that much notice of it, because they're moving around. But then suddenly behind them, the door slams, bang, right? And the subconscious is now after associating that bang with the plane, the picture of the plane. You know what I mean? And that's after creating a fear of flying or a fear of airplanes, more so. Plane equals that scare. I'm going to keep you safe. And so as an adult, and I've dealt with people who had, unexplainable fear of flying, and, like really ingrained in there. And who knows where that came from. But we got rid of it, and they got on the plane. That's the bottom line. But it was, it was dug in there so deeply. And this guy had been trying to deal with in so many different ways, so many different therapies over years and years, But yeah, that's just another example of the subconscious is here to keep you safe, but that can sometimes be a problem,
Is this something that you could do on yourself? If maybe you've noticed there was something holding you back, could you do this for yourself, or would you have to get someone else to do this with the same process for you?
You could get audios. Audios are a big part of what I do. I've had, like 70,000 streams in some of the audios that I've put out there. And the transformation for that one is, it's really releasing unhelpful thoughts, feelings, and emotions it's like a psycho-spiritual approach to self-healing, and you can bring yourself into a hypnotic state yourself using self-hypnosis techniques as well, which can be learned. I mean, you could just get onto the Googleator and, find self-hypnosis, and it will guide you into learning it for yourself and being able to bring your state into, a realm where you can easily make changes. And I actually, for myself, I recorded just a hypnotic induction and deepener that brings you way down, and you can basically see yourself making the changes that you want to make, and it's totally content free. So you can actually go, okay, so today I'm working on, confidence, for example, or for sports people, or for people who are public speaking, or for business people closing deals, and they're just going into this intimidating situation, but they just want to go in there absolutely on fire. So they just want to, pre-visualize the whole thing. It's a very powerful, like, you hear of actors and golfers and Tiger Woods and all these different people using the whole pre-visualization technique. So self-hypnosis is absolutely fantastic for that. So it doesn't have to go into a big long process. It can be very precise, and you can very quickly get yourself into that state and then choose what it is that you're trying to get out of it at that point. Okay. And then obviously you're going to bring a strong intention in as well. You know what I mean? And then hold that in your mind as you're going down into that change state.
So all of this, and it sounds like it almost is like a form of hypnosis. Is that kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like a blend. It's like a blend of deep subconscious processes accessed through hypnotic phenomenon, and also the energetic component as well. I guess I don't talk about the energy aspect of it for a fear of scaring people away. You know what I mean? It's like bringing out your crystals and all this good. Yeah. You know what I mean? There are kind of negative connotations, even though, if you look at acupuncture and you look at Chinese medicine and all this kind of stuff, they've been, very, very effectively using these phenomena for like thousands upon thousands of years, but it is a very, very big aspect of what I bring to the table. Say, for example, you might have, 50 people in a hypnotic class, and they're learning different processes and stuff like this. Some people will be head and shoulders above others, and it's the energy that they're bringing to the transformation, and the intention that they're carrying for that person to simply have a good experience and to make the changes that they themselves are going to make during the process. So I'm here really as a guide, to facilitate the process that the person, is then going to take and run with and change themselves. If that makes sense, rather than me prescribing, you are going to do this and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm creating the space and opening up the space. And then the word magic is there to give the opportunity for someone to then take that and run with it. Does that make sense? Yeah. I know that people can be, and at the same time, I know that people who do not want to change can be made to change. Using hypnotic phenomena, but that's not the approach I use.
So, because it sounds like what you do is a type of hypnosis, but not exactly the same. I have heard, and I heard this from someone who actually does hypnosis as well, that not everyone can be hypnotized. So does what you do, would it work on everyone, or are there some people that maybe it wouldn't work so well on?
I guess if someone doesn't want to change, this won't work.
Okay.
Because I'm not forcing it. Yeah. I'm giving them the opportunity to make the changes that they actually want to make themselves, rather than going, again, we're coming back to the prescription thing. And it can be done, but it's not the way I like to work. You know what I mean? So for like long lasting change, like deep transformation and self-improvement, all that kind of stuff, that's coming from the person who wants to change. And they're the people I want to work with, not people who go, you need to fix me. And if you don't, then, you need to give me my money back.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense from your point of view. You want to work with people that want that transformation and they want the change. Do you ever work with someone who, on the surface, they say, oh, I want to change, but then you kind of speak to them and actually you think there is maybe something in them that actually they they say they want to, but they actually don't? Is there does that ever come up for you?
I've only refunded one person. And I
Okay.
just once it seemed okay in the surface, and the onboarding was pretty precisely done, and I was excited to work with them. But it turned out to be just not a good fit. There was a disturbance, and they kind of came out of the state they were in, and then said that there was no hypnosis in it. And I was like, well, your jaw was like wide open, and you were like, but if you don't want to continue, that's all good. But my offer is to bring someone from A to B, within those 9 weeks. And if for some crazy reason they haven't gotten everything they wanted to get out of it at that point, then I'll continue working with them one-to-one until they've reached that. But there's no going backwards, because then that doesn't help them, right?
So the whole 9 weeks thing, that's quite precise, like 8 weeks, not 8 weeks, not 12 weeks. Do you find that 9 weeks is kind of the time frame that you've seen that is best for your clients in general, and that's why you make it 9 weeks, and then if they need a little bit longer, then so be it? But is there a reason behind the 9 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, the performance switch was 5 weeks. What I wanted to do with that was make it so fucking inevitable that they were going to get the performance, but they'll also become much more deeply fulfilled, and they're going to have the time to see all that happen. And we're then actually going to measure it every single week, to make sure that they actually realize that they're undergoing a massive transformation in this. And I also want to give them a week to do the onboarding, which is like 150 questions, which is absolutely cathartic, in that they can go through everything from the past. They can look at how they're living their life right now in terms of, toxins that they're ingesting, and maybe they're drinking 10 cups of coffee a day and wonder why they're anxious. All of these kind of things that we're just going, yeah, well, you might want to look at this, you might want to look at that, you might want to look at the other. You know what I mean? This is making sure that when we're going through this process, that there aren't any obvious things that could actually impact the process negatively. And then we're looking at the future, right? So for me, right, it makes total sense that there are 3 phases. One is we're dealing with the past aspect. The second is like a new vision emerging, so in the present. And then there is an ascension into you becoming a more conscious, being, whether you're an entrepreneur or you work for a corporation, or whatever it is that you do. So there are 3 phases, okay? And then within those 3 phases, there are 3 stages. So, there are usually like 3 sessions within each phase. And the first one is, a huge deep dive. And if someone wants to do a few audios at that point to kind of help them go through it and all that kind of stuff, they can. And then we go into 7 deep hypnosis / energy sessions. And then the very end, there's a deep somatics process. And this is something that someone can do for the next 8 months while they still have access to the program. They can use, somatics every day to allow the body to catch up with the mind. Because once the subconscious makes the changes, those changes are instant, but the body has, in some cases, things locked in there, in the muscles, in the cells for decades, in some cases. And the body will be slower to transform. We just give it a lot of space at the end for the body to catch up with the mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
as I've been listening to you speak, really from the start, I remember asking a question of how would someone know that your process and the work that you do could be really beneficial for them? There's 2 things that I'm picking up on. I don't know what your thoughts on this are. One of them is they may have been through a lot of programs already where it focuses on the external things, and there's still something not quite right. And then maybe they know that there's more than one thing that's an issue that keeps coming up. Maybe that they're overeating, and then they're overworking, and they're not spending time with family, and they're not
Mm.
exercising. If it's all those things packaged in one, then maybe there is that internal shift and internal work that needs doing. And then maybe they've
Mm.
been through programs for individual things, but they've still not really helped. Do you feel like
Mm.
they're two things that a lot of your maybe clients have done in the past, and then that shows that that's going to be the work that you do is going to be good work for them?
Yeah, I mean, my approach would be to not tackle stuff at the surface level,
Mhm.
because no matter how it comes out, if it comes out as workaholism, if it comes out as alcoholism, if it comes out as overeating, all these things are just symptoms of a greater, deeper spiritual malady, if you like. I think I'm quoting AA there. I was in AA for a few years back in 2000, 2005, I think it was, and I stopped immediately. I haven't drank since. So, that kind of stuff can work as well. But I found for me that it didn't deal with the underlying subconscious programming. So I went on for the next, well over a decade with that same subconscious programming that hadn't been dealt with. And I had stopped drinking, and I'd stopped using any kinds of drugs, stopped smoking cigarettes. Um, but it was like whack-a-mole. You know what I mean? Alcoholism was gone, but all of the other fucking behaviors were there. The obsessive compulsive, behaviors and thoughts, and getting, addicted to retail therapy and making stupid decisions, and, you know, not being present was my biggest failure as a partner father. Creating a BMW project widow, if you like, just getting so involved in the car and all this kind of stuff. But it was really, an inability to sit with myself comfortably. And just kind of bringing it back to myself, just to use me as an example, right? Um, but yeah, it wasn't until I did the deeper work that, just dealt with all of the underlying traumas. So, like, my background was I was adopted when I was 4 weeks old. So things happened around there that I didn't have any conscious awareness or memory of, that my subconscious did. And my subconscious would have been programmed, from the lineage, and obviously in the womb. So if my biological mother was getting ready to do a closed adoption, and she was in a mother and baby home run by the nuns down in Cork, in the south of Cork, let me say it properly, down in Cork in the south of I'm just laughing at myself the way Cork came out there. Cork. Cork, by. So, she was getting ready to drop and run, and would have been very anxious, and would have had a lot of blame, shame, regret, and guilt, and a lot of judgment coming at her from the nuns and all this kind of stuff. And that would have been encoded into my subconscious. Okay. Then there was the whole, being born trauma, and the way it is in the Western world, lying on your back, it's just like it's set up for trauma, But the bottom line is they thought I died. So whatever was happening with the brain function and all that kind of stuff changed, and then it was basically put on ice for 4 weeks. So no nurture, just basic, no breastfeeding, because my biological mother was gone at that point. So no bonding, no nurturing. And can you imagine how bad formula was back in 1973? Muck, I imagine. You know what I mean? So all of these things, right? And then my parents who adopted me were absolutely phenomenal. Really caring. Primary school teacher and secondary school teacher, so there was no escape in school. So I had my mum when I was in senior infants, and my dad. I almost got away with not having my dad by the repeated fifth year. So it was like, and he was great. He was like, this is my son, with whom I am well pleased, quoting scripture when I came in. So, so he was brilliant as well, but there was all of the associated things, having teacher parents and having kids, taking pot shots at you and all this kind of stuff. All that was kind of my story. And then there was undiagnosed autism. I didn't get a diagnosis until I was 45. I was like, fuck, that actually makes total sense when I look back at all the shit that was going on when I was very, very young. Relationships were difficult, eye contact, all this kind of stuff. But and actually the day that I got the rubber stamp for autism was the first day that I started on the hypnosis side of things. And once I experienced this hypnotic recording, and it was only an hour long, I was like, holy fuck, it totally changed my world. And I went out with the dog for about 3 hours onto the beach. It was dark and we were still out there going, whoa. It was such a massive shift for me. And I was like, I gotta get inside this. So I used my obsessive compulsive superpowers and just dived into it for years, and then hang on a second, the energetic aspect of it as well is even more powerful. So what happens when you blend it all together, and start shifting people's energy during hypnotic processes? So I guess, to make a long story even longer, that's how I ended up with the blend. You know what I mean? And maybe that answers your question in an indirect way, but just gives a bit more insight.
Yeah, so it sounds like the process and the journey that you've been on, is you've taken that into your work now, and then you can help other people. And then as you evolve and grow as a person, and as you do more of this work on yourself, then it's going to help you to also serve other people better and better, like as you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you're in personal development, or you've had to go to counseling, or you've had to go to addiction kind of, so I went to the alcohol treatment unit in Baggot Street, Dublin, and you just know when you're presented with someone whose life experience just doesn't kind of match up with what they're actually doing and helping people with. And I'm not saying that, in order for someone to be able to help you, they have to have had that experience, because I've helped people whose life experience I haven't had. I've still been able to help them because I'm, working directly with their subconscious. But I think, when people are coming in with addiction and obsessive compulsive stuff and anxiety and depression and self-sabotage, and, from the outside, it looks like they have everything. But the internal landscape is very, very familiar to someone like me. And when they unload a bit about their story and they see that I totally get it, that makes a massive difference,
Fantastic. So if somebody was watching this then and they were thinking, I need to speak to Enda, there's something there, and I know there is, but I can't quite find that answer, or can't quite solve the problem. What should they do? What's the first thing they should do?
Maybe visit my website to get an overview of what it is that, again, that's going to be upgraded soon enough as well, but it'll give you quite a wide overview of, the subconscious mind and how it affects us, and how it changes our thoughts and our actions and our words, and how quickly and easily we can actually change it as well once we mediate with it. And it gets that, okay, I'm not actually keeping you safe by doing this. Okay, so let's change all that. And apologies. And we can crack on now. So if you visit endaquealy.com, I'm sure there'll be a link somewhere.
Yeah, I'll make sure there's a link in the description of this video.
Absolutely. And if all that kind of stuff resonates, then just send me a message via Messenger. We could have a very brief back and forth. And if it made sense to have a quick conversation, we could do.
And is there a particular, so like, I know you said you work with like entrepreneurs and that, but if even someone's not got a business, they could still potentially reach out to you and you could still help them, whether they're a business owner or not.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to own a business. I just find that self-employed people or entrepreneurs or people with that. I mean, I've worked with creatives as well, and that was they were who I started working with first and foremost, because I came from 20 years in the music industry. So I started talking to people who were touring and all this kind of stuff. And you can imagine if we're talking about peak performance, needing to bring it to play in front of thousands of people, and then all the imposter syndrome and all that shit in there, saying like, your last album was shit, all this kind of stuff, and you're gonna have to go out and play that now in front of people. So all the performance anxiety and all this kind of stuff in there as well. So it's like you don't need to be an entrepreneur. It's just the niche that I found myself in, and it's an easy kind of avatar, if you like, to call people out. So I call conscious entrepreneurs out. What's that? I'm an entrepreneur, but am I conscious? So you kind of gets people thinking about who they are. And also, there are billions of people on Earth, and I can't work with everyone. You know what I mean? And I prefer to work with people who are conscious about what they're doing in business, or they're conscious about the way they're living their lives. You know what I mean? Given that we have a choice of 8 billion.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, I think we've covered some really good stuff today, and I'm sure there's going to be people listening to this. They're like, I need to look at this stuff because this is probably something that they maybe haven't looked too much into in that subconscious side and the things
Yeah.
back. So is there anything that you would like to cover or talk about that we haven't discussed yet today, or any questions that you was hoping I might have asked but didn't, or if we kind of covered everything you would like to?
I don't have any burning message that I'd like to share, other than I hope it's been informative, and that,
Certainly has for me, so I'm sure it has for other people.
in terms of the bigger, wider picture, we're talking about energetics, not just the subconscious mind, not just the thing that happened in your childhood, but the bigger aspects of us as multidimensional beings that are carrying encoded messages from thousands of years ago. Whether or not the karmic thing resonates, physics will tell us that everything is energy, and when we know that, and we can work with energy, we can work within the energy field, and the subconscious can access all this, and we're talking directly to the subconscious. We're changing you from being a whatever mediocre version of yourself, despite all the material trappings and successes that it looks like you're enjoying, but you're not really getting to that depth of fulfillment. If that resonates with you, have a conversation. I think it'll be worthwhile doing that.
Definitely, it certainly sounds like it'd be worthwhile for me, like in terms of like the people that this would help with. This, to me, I feel like it could be the missing piece for so many people. I mean,
Yeah.
for my own story, so I've previously had struggles with like mental health and stuff like that, and that then lent into an idea of like overworking, no work life, what I call integration rather than work life balance, because I don't really believe in balance, I believe in integration. And then I helped solve that for myself, and then I started to help other people, but I couldn't go into that subconscious work and help people from that area because that wasn't an area of expertise for me. So I was having to help on the external level of the work-life integration.
Yeah.
But you go so much deeper. So you might have people that maybe you're struggling with that work-life balance or integration, whatever they want to call it, but there's something else going on alongside that you can go a lot deeper with your clients to really help them solve that, but at the same time create much bigger transformations outside of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like everything you've mentioned there is covered in a step-by-step process within those 9 weeks. Because I've I've been working on the messaging for each, and I just want to get really super crystal clear and, show it in a way that is actually tangible and easy for people to understand. Because, it's where I've fallen down in my marketing. So I'm just like, yay, change your words, change your life, change your energy. Yay, man. And I'm just kind of coming out like that. It's not making sense to people. But when you've kind of put it down in a map and a process, and it's not a linear process, all of this may happen differently for different people. But we're saying that at this stage, we're doing this, and this process is designed to do this, and we're going through all that, and one of them, does deal with addictions, and it totally changes you on a core level, but what I'd say is if you're interested in seeing that map, it's not ready yet. It will be on my website at some point, but I'm mapping it all out now. I'll show you actually, since we were doing it here. Kind of, I have so many fucking post-it notes, and it's that was kind of business mapping over the weekend, and my girlfriend is like a corporate process mapper, if you like. I'm not sure if I got the corporate title. She doesn't do it anymore, but it's what she used to do in big business. So it's putting all of the measurables and all the outcomes at each stage and all this kind of stuff in there. So it's inevitable that people see what is actually changing. You know what I mean? That they don't, because actually I see that happen quite a lot, where people go, yeah, they get this shift and they forget they've changed immediately. And, they're just kind of after forgetting where they've come from. So we're actually just making it really super obvious from the intake to then, 9 weeks later, and you should see like a huge transformation.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. This has been fantastic. I've learned so much. It's been really interesting to hear about the internal work that we often hear so much about, but I think we've heard about it in a way today that is different to what you would normally hear about in content. And I think it's possibly because we've gone into it a little bit deeper, and that's maybe the challenge, isn't it? Is that how do you turn that into marketing? So like, you're really good at the process of what you do, but it's like, now how do I couple that with marketing in a sense that people are going to understand it and then think this is for me? So that's probably where maybe the challenge has been for you, isn't it? That you've got to make sure you get that. Link between marketing and what you actually do.
Absolutely. I've been really airy-fairy about the messaging and all that kind of stuff, whereas, Alex, she's been amazing. Like, she was just going through all this, like, we're making the intangible tangible. And I've gone through it a good number of times since and simplified the language down even more. And I was looking at it this morning. I was going, this is a fucking awesome offer. You know what I mean? Like, it's totally life-changing. And actually, a big part of it came from Aaron Fletcher. The Fletcher method? He's got growth works and launch maps as well. And I'm sure he got it from somewhere else as well, but kudos to his process, because that's what we used.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's really helped me a lot of giving me a good understanding that if I was speaking to somebody who needed your support, I feel like now I would know quite quickly if somebody needed to speak to you. So I think that shows how well you describe what you do from a process side of things, because I have that clear now, and I'm sure other people will as well. They'll be like, I know they're probably thinking of people either themselves or people they know that are like, I bet you they would help.
People in sales.
A lot of help.
Yeah, like enterprise level salespeople. That's one of my sub niches. And actually, when I got going, because I've been in sales, I guess everyone's in sales, right? But for decades and decades, actual sales, marketing, but it was high-tech studio recording equipment that was in demand. So all I had to do was take their messaging and marketing and position it and go, you can get it here, folks. So I didn't really have to put a huge amount of thought in it. I just had to reassemble what was already there. Very different when you're doing something in personal transformation, and you see, what's easy to sell. Okay, what's easy to sell is an increase in turnover or it's an increase in earning potential. And obviously, you know, if someone does deep work on themselves, their earning potential is going to skyrocket, right? But it's not something that I'm going to offer as a hard, tangible outcome for anyone. Oh, you'll increase your business by X amount, because their, you know, their business could be absolutely positioned arseways. And no amount of personal development is going to change that if it's, you know, if it's going. So, you know, depending on the level, right? But ultimately, through this deeper work, you just improve all areas and aspects of your life. But it's just, you know, how to actually put the measurables on all that kind of stuff, and you know, present it in a way that makes sense for people, I guess. But I reckon I've cracked it over the last week or so.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like. I think that fulfillment is one of those things that I think most people know if they're truly fulfilled or not. Maybe they don't know why they're not fulfilled, but they probably know if they are or they aren't. So I think that's a good thing to focus on, because it makes people sit up and think, okay, I know I'm not fulfilled. I know there's these things going on externally, but maybe it's the internal that I need to work on. So I think you got your messaging very good. And I think that's going to really help from a marketing perspective, which is great, because like you said, what you do is amazing. You just need to now make sure that people understand it to a point that they know straight away that I need to speak to Enda. He's the person that help me with it.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed.
That's it. Well, I'll keep an eye on how that evolves over the next few weeks and beyond.
Yeah.
But I'll make sure that people get to see this and kind of get kind of like to understand your work and what you do and hear about what you do, and then hopefully we can get some people reaching out to you as well just from this alone.
Yeah, brilliant. That'd be much appreciated. Well, look, really, again, appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and whoever else is watching this. You know, if anyone wants to get in touch at any point, you know where I am, hopefully.
They will. I'll make sure there's a link to your website. If I haven't, I think I've got it, but if I haven't, I'll get that off you and I'll put that into the description of the post, and then they can click on your profile as well, so I can tag you in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, people will definitely be able to get in touch with you if this resonates with them in some way.
You should send me a recording as well, because I'll create a load of reels out of it and just pepper it all over the place, and I'll link people to your group as well to see the full recording.
I'll definitely do that. Once it's all downloaded on my end, I'll make sure you put the recording as well.
Okay, awesome stuff. All right, I mean, you can finish the recording whenever you want. I think we're done.